So I am just returning from the Parliament of the World's Religions in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I had the privilege of joining with individuals from around the world. 50 countries represented, 50 different faith traditions represented, 80 countries represented, and totaling 10,000 people from around the world, with the intention of coming to understand one another, to learn from one another about our different faith traditions, to foster relationships, and then to build peace in the world together. Is that great or is that great? There was no incident of violence or angst. It was a peaceful gathering of people from around the world who hold a vision of a world that works for everyone. Now, did you see that on CNN? Anybody see that? What did you see on CNN? Hillary Clinton's email account. Hour after hour after hour on continuous loop. But half the world, 10,000 people from around the world could assemble in peace with the purpose of building peace on the world, and that can't make the news. I'm just saying. While I was there, I was very inspired, as I always am, about these gatherings. This is my third gathering. I went to the gathering in 1999 in Cape Town, South Africa. That's where I met President Mandela and the Dalai Lama, and then the second one in Barcelona, Spain, and now this one here in Salt Lake City. And every time I'm there, I'm re-inspired, I'm reignited about the possibility that the world can be. And I got to interact with a number of people who prove day by day that peace is possible in our lifetime. Can we say that as an affirmation? Peace is possible in our lifetime. But sometimes we are bombarded with so many images about what's going on in the world, whether it's mass shootings, or whether it's abject poverty in the world, or whether individuals around the world have no access to health care or education. You know what I'm talking about? And we see these images and we hear these stories and we sit in our chairs and our hearts open, but sometimes we feel helpless and hopeless to do anything about it. Anybody ever been there? Just kind of, there's a moment when you get fired up and then you just sit right on down. It's just too overwhelming. I just leave it to the government to figure it out. Ever done that? And so there's this notion in which the problems in our world are too difficult for us to face. We need somebody to handle it. Because I'm not the one who can really take it on. It's too Goliath for me. Ever felt that way? Well, in this conference, we get an opportunity to engage individuals who have not been stopped by what ugly images the world projects about what's possible. But I don't want to just limit it to them. I want to take you back a page or two. Would that be all right? Let's go back a page or two. I'm going to read John, the 6th chapter, starting at the first verse. I want you to hear this because I think this might help us to set the tone for this discussion today. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee and called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" And Philip answered, Whole Foods. Just keeping you awake this morning. He opens up the scripture. I'm going to sleep till he's finished reading it. See, I know you. I know you. I know you. He said this, Jesus speaking, he said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there is a boy here. Everybody say, there's a boy here. There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many? Jesus said, make the people sit down. Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, and about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed the loaves to those who were seated, also fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, gather up the fragments left over so that nothing may be lost. So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, with what he had done, they began to say, this is indeed the prophet who has come into the world. This morning I want to speak to you from the topic, what's stopping you? Point to yourselves in the first person and just ask yourself that question. Come on. What's stopping me? What's stopping you? Now, I want to just point something out. I know it's probably going to shake some of us religious folks, so just make sure you got your seatbelt on. The passage that I just read for you, you may believe that Jesus is the star of that passage. But the fact is that Jesus was not the star of this passage. Tell somebody lightning's about to strike. Go ahead and tell them. Jesus was not the star of this passage. There was an unnamed little boy who brought his lunch, who was willing to share his lunch in the seeming appearance of lack and limitation. Even where the disciples were filled with doubt, there was a little boy that was present who had it within himself a vision of abundance. Who's here this morning? See, back in those days, women and children weren't even counted in the census. And so as we tell this story today, you notice that everybody's name is given but his. Did you notice that? And that speaks to a value within society where we underestimate or we see as insignificant the contribution of the world's children, the world's young. Is that right? But here's what the master teacher said, suffer unto me the little children, forbid them not, for to such as these belongeth the kingdom of heaven. And if you do not become, everybody say become as a little child, you shall in no wise inherit the kingdom. Are you with me this morning? And so it was this little boy who gave his lunch. Now, listen, if I send my kids to school with lunch, the best they're going to do, and we send them every day, lunch, they're going to trade. My little Camila is always hunting for the child who has chocolate because we send her with none. And it's a hard trade-off to trade organic carrots with somebody's chocolate. But the miracle that took place happened in the heart of this young man first, this young boy first. And the message is that we must become like this little boy. In times when there are mass shootings, in times of abject poverty, in times when people don't have access to clean water and we are polluting and destroying our only home, in times like these when it seems overwhelming, I must be willing to volunteer my lunch. Rev Kev, I get it, but I don't have a college degree, or I don't have an advanced education, or I'm not well known. I'm not known as well as some of the people out there today. Or I've never started a not-for-profit organization. Or there are already other good organizations out there. Who's done this talk? Confess and forsake your sin. We take ourselves to this, and then we move ourselves from what could potentially be a powerful, transformative act in the world to dropping back to apathy and becoming club members of the Ain't It Awful Society. Anybody card-carrying member? Of course, you won't tell me today, but your friends know. If you're sitting next to someone who's a member, a card-carrying member of the Ain't It Awful Society, stand on up and let me see. Hey, sit down. Just make. So then, Rev Kev, how do we get there? How do we turn the page so that in our moment where we feel inspired to take action about something that is gigantic, that seems overwhelming in the world, that I can actually move forward? Because that's why I'm here today. I want to charge, challenge, and inspire you to see yourself as the ones we've been looking for. I want you to see yourself as part of the solution. My grandpapa used to say, if you're not part of the problem, you're not part of the solution, you are the problem. So, Grandpapa, you are the problem, Kevin Ross. So go out there and be a part of the solution. There's a statement, evil persists when good men and women sit by and do nothing. So how do we do something? The first thing you must have is a consciousness for the world. When I'm saying consciousness, I'm saying awareness. Let me just say something. I know you have your world of the four walls that you live in, the five friends that you hang out with, the place where you go to church and work and shop and live. You got a world, don't you? Come on, tell the truth. Talk to me this morning. You got a world? But I want you to know that there is more to your world that's going on if you're willing to have a consciousness or an awareness for the world. And this awareness for the world kind of goes like this. I am a citizen of the world. Together, I am a citizen of the world. You've got to see yourself as being a part of the world. Sometimes when we see these things happening, we try to distance ourselves from it and hope they get it together over there, as if it won't have an effect over here pretty soon. Do you get that? When I was young, my mother and father were conservationists, particularly water conservationists. And I had two younger brothers, and they would bathe us all together as little kids in the same tub. Who's a water conservationist parent who did that? Just drop them all in together. My youngest brother, Timothy, had a bladder control issue. At around age 2 or 3, I can't remember how old he was. And from time to time, he would pee in the tub. And of course, my brother and I would jump out of the tub, run and tell my parents that Tim had peed in the tub. Now, Timmy's answer when he was called upon about peeing in the tub was, well, Timmy, why did you do it? He says, well, it was only in the back of the tub. And this is our mindset. We kind of think that that's just happening over there. It's not having any effect over here, but I'm telling you, the pee will move eventually to the front of the tub. Say again with me, I am a global citizen. Come on, I am a... Yeah. Got to have a consciousness. Oh, some of you know what I'm talking about. You're all suited up and looking good today, but you've had some pee on you one time or another. I am a citizen of the world. What affects one affects all eventually. I'm connected to it. And so in that you establish this awareness of what's going on, you start paying attention to what's happening around the world, in that you start to care. You get that? That's the next C. Caring. You start to care about what's happening. That's a simple act that can occur. And a simple thing you can do sometimes when you're seeing these things that you feel overwhelmed by is just take a moment to have a silent prayer about it. Don't sit there and judge it and spend half an hour talking about the politics of it. Isn't that what we do? If they would just get their political system working, their political system is the reason. No, let's stop for a moment and care that they are suffering someplace in the world. And that we're not exempt. Say that, come on. We are not exempt. Trust and believe. We're not exempt from that kind of suffering and struggle. So you care. From that caring grows up to become compassion. What does caring become? Compassion. Compassion is this moving passionately in the direction of your concern. You just start to move in that direction. That means you start to read up more about it. You may give a donation to a 501c3 that supports the alleviation of that cause, or you may start to volunteer, but you start to become what? Come on. Compassionate. And the more you pay attention to what's going on around you, eventually something will, next C, convict you. You'll get what? Convicted. Conviction is that deep inner ownership of the cause of the concern. This is mine to do. Ever see something that in the world and say that I'm all over that? Come on, say with me, I am all over that. Tell somebody nearby, I'm all over that. Just get in practice of saying, I'm all over that. There's a cause, there's something that rings your bell, there's something that resonates with you. Let me have that water right quick. There's something that resonates within you, that rings your bell. And you say, that's me. Come on, say with me, that's me. That's mine to do. A young lady named Fatima Knight happened to be at the Parliament of the World's Religions. Fatima today is a 23-year-old Muslim woman who saw the arsons in the South as being a problem for her. These church burnings were a problem for who? It was her problem. Now, she's a Muslim. Are you hearing me? But as she began to develop this consciousness and she started to care, her compassion grew and she got convicted, and this became her cause. She owned that cause. I'm taking it up. It's my responsibility. And during the holy month of Ramadan, which is a season of fasting and also giving and sharing, Fatima made it her business to raise money to help restore these churches in the South. She just slipped around and raised $100,000 to rebuild churches. Come on now. Come on, give it up for her. She was like that little boy. What he had was conviction and some lunch. You get that? What do you have in your house, in your spirit, among your means, that you're willing to connect to your conviction for the world? What is it? And be willing to bring that forth. The miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 plus. You know there are more than 5,000 there. Because in another gospel it says, not counting the women and the children, there were 5,000. The miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 was one convicted young man who gave his lunch, who shared his lunch, brought that lunch to Jesus, and Jesus was able to demonstrate and multiply his example of sharing, and people who were sitting there with lunch start sharing their lunch with one another. It was a miracle. It wasn't a magic trick. What did I say? It was a miracle. It was not a, oh, we would rather believe the magic trick. That means I don't have to do anything. It doesn't say specifically what occurred there, except he blessed it and gave thanks. But the miracle was that people who would not ordinarily share with each other, like this Muslim young lady who decided that those are my people too. Come on, talk to me today. Wouldn't ordinarily reach out and extend our branches over those fences. She made it her business. I'm telling you, we got to get spiritually nosy in here. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear how I qualified it? Don't be, where's Rev Kev going tomorrow? What is it? That's not what I'm talking about. That's a different kind of nosy. I said what? Spiritually nosy. I want to know about this world. I want to know about your plight and your challenge, because I want to be a beneficial presence to it. I want to contribute to it. There's another young lady that there's a movie out about her right now. Her name is Malala. Have you seen Malala? Come on now. Anybody seen it yet? Required viewing. Take your kids to see it. Mine will be right here promptly sitting with me watching the whole thing. Phenomenal, transformative. In Pakistan, in an area of Pakistan where the Taliban had risen up and decided that girls would not be allowed to have an education. Little Malala decided, they ain't talking to me. I'm going to school. And she encouraged other girls to go to school. Because if you want to transform the world, put a book in the hand of young girls. Because the mother is the educator, the first educator of the world. Do you understand that? She got that early on, and she went on and dared to go to school. And one day she went to school. And while at school, the Taliban was aware that she was there and sent shooters over and shot her and her friend. She was shot in the face. 14 years old. But when it's your time to shine, the Taliban's bullet can't stop you. For truth crushed to the ground will rise again. They tell me she woke up from the coma state, received the surgeries. People from around the world prayed for her, and she went straight back and started standing up for education for little girls. And she is the youngest Nobel Peace Laureate in history. Your subject and verb don't have to agree in order for you to be great. You don't have to have a degree hanging on your wall in order to be great. You don't have to come from some high pedigree in order to be great. You don't have to be able to name drop those that are in your Rolodex in order to be great. If you want to be great, serve. Service is the key. Rev, I don't know how. You don't have to be great to get started. But you have to get started to be great. Do you think they took the Jesus Christ seminar on greatness? Or attended the rally on great? No, they moved with a conviction, and here's the last thing they did. They got committed to their conviction. Come on, say, I commit to my conviction. Who remembers that song, The Hokey Pokey? One of the world's most renowned tunes. You put your left leg in, you take your left leg out. You put your left leg in and you proceed to shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey, then you turn yourself around. What is it? Come on. That's how some of us start. We just start by putting our left leg in. And we take it out. No, I'm not going to do it. And we put it back in again. And then it starts to get good to you, and then you put your right leg in. Now you're volunteering for 2 weeks, then you take your right leg out. Somebody comes and they give you a certificate for how well you serve. Then you put your right leg back in. Then you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. Come on, that's what it's all about. And then something happens. In the course of your service, in the course of your extending your compassion, you start to taste something in yourself and of yourself that you never knew was there before. And then you put your whole self in. You take your whole self out. You put your whole self in, and then you shake it all about. You do the, come on, and you turn yourself around, and that's what it's all about. It's all about doing the hokey pokey. That's all it is. I want to be fully engaged in something that makes me come alive. Howard Thurman said, don't go look for what the world needs. Go look for what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs are people who have come alive. Find something that will make you come alive and give the entirety of yourself over to it. The call from the master teacher is that which you have done unto the least of these, my brethren. You have also done it unto me. And so if you need additional incentive, know that you are moving forth by the authority of the master. To be the hands and the feet and the eyes and the arms of God in this world. You see, it doesn't take much. It just takes us to wake up, and we tell you in unity to look within, but wake up and look around. Take a look around. And then name yourself as the one the world's been looking for. And before you know it, the loaves and the fish will be multiplied. And there will be baskets left over. And people will follow you. They will follow the light in you and go and do likewise. Margaret Mead was a beautiful anthropologist. She said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful unity citizens can change the world. Never doubt that where you are, right where you are with what you have, is insufficient. Because where God has given you a vision, God will give you provision. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I always strive to be among this small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. And I now invite you to join me. Let's go and change the world, because we can. And so it is written, and so I have spoken it, and so you have heard it, and so it is.